Hello, and welcome back to another episode of my podcast. I'm really happy that you're here. It's just going to be us today. So, thank you so much for being here. I've been meaning to talk about boundaries, but I've been wanting to talk about it in a way that is easy to understand and easy to practice. And I hope that I'm getting there. So, stay patient with me today. I mean, we hear it all the time. People say you gotta have boundaries and you have to stick to your boundaries. And I don't know that we are really unpacking what that actually means and what it looks like sometimes. Not the kind of boundary where you hold other people accountable for how you respond. I mean, the real gut level work of figuring out what your boundaries actually are, not because someone told you to have them, but because you've lived the consequences of not having them. I'm going to walk you through what boundaries have come to mean for me, how I found and defined my own, how I've broken them, and what that taught me about my relationship with myself. Welcome to Becoming Secure with Magsmindset. The way I've come to understand boundary is that it isn't a rule for someone else. It's not, you can't treat me like this. It is, if I'm being treated like this, I will act accordingly. It's more like an internal commitment, if you will. They're how you protect your peace, but not police others. And the truth is, most of us don't really find out what our boundaries are until we've crossed them. That's how we learn, or at least that's how I learned. I'd say never again, and when I really meant it, that's when the boundary gets real. And sometimes I was willing to hurt once more if it meant getting a little hit of that immediate short-term reward. I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know what that means to you. It could be the ex that you slept with once more, or the situationship that you keep giving life to despite the fact that you feel like shit about yourself half the time and he's not initiating anything unless it means sex. Or it could be the friend you always hang out with that always talks shit about everyone else and seem to lack complete self-awareness, draining everyone's energy, yet you keep hanging out with them without confronting the issue. However, boundaries are not hard walls. Sometimes, maybe more like a threshold. You won't always know right away where your line is, but the way that I learned it was by dancing really near it, stepping over, and checking in on how I felt afterwards. For me, the barometer was always the next morning after a night out or after a date. If I did not wake up feeling proud of myself or peaceful, it was because I was waking up with a pit in my stomach, feeling like I betrayed myself. The feeling of self-loathing, that was my signal. That's when I knew that a boundary had been crossed. Not because I wanted to shame myself, but to reflect, like this is the data that I could hold on to. It's not only the ones that I say, but it's how I feel. That's how I know. I do want to talk about my developing boundary setting, if you will, when it comes to sex, because it's a space I've struggled to navigate for many years. Also, granted that my podcast is about attachment and how I can set myself up for success when it comes to dating, etc. This has definitely been a space in which I've been dancing really close to that line and stepping over it over and over and over again. But like dieting, I find it way easier not to eat than to eat smaller meals often, so I gravitated towards intermittent fasting when it came to dieting. Similarly, I find it easier not to have sex than to choose wisely the first time. I have to give myself time to really get to know someone's intentions with me before I share myself that intimately with someone. That being said, it's really easy to stay disciplined and keep your boundaries real hard when you're not even putting yourself in a situation where you can be vulnerable. I mean, I definitely know what it's like to have a super handsome guy come up to me and give me all the attention that I so well desire, say all the right things, and be completely tempted to go away from everything that I have promised myself that I will do because now it's right in front of me. It is when it is right in front of you that you have to actually stay true to the boundary that you communicated to yourself. It is when you're putting yourself out there that that boundary will be tested and you really get to know who you really are. Or at least you get to understand the difference between who you say you are and what you actually do. A way in which I've kind of navigated this in the past year is that I have found out what I do believe is okay and how I wake up the next morning feeling proud. And this is what this looks like. Because I love going out dancing and flirting, I love the kissing, the making out, all the excitement of the beginning. That's kind of what I allow myself to do. I allow myself to put myself in these situations and allow for the kissing and all of that, because that's also when you kind of get to see if the energies are matching at all, if there's somewhat of a compatibility in this moment. But it isn't until you communicate, or I say you, it hasn't been until I communicated that sex was off the table in that moment, that you really realize who you have in front of you and what their true intentions were. So what I've learned is that when that communication has been drawn, I also find out who is willing to stick around and who is just having fun. And don't get me wrong, there's absolutely nothing wrong about just wanting to have fun. It's just way easier for me to navigate the situation when I know what they're out there for. And here is also where you have to be cautious, because I have definitely had that person in front of me that seemingly wanted everything that I wanted and also was super okay with the non-sex of it all, but still winds up being opposite of what they said that they were, because the moment sex was there, they disappeared. Sometimes it's just an accomplishment. So that's also why it is important to allow for the time and the space to actually figure out what they truly want, because sometimes they might say exactly what works, and boy, does it work. And it pretty much sucks when you realize that after the fact. And that is one of the main reasons why I have to just allow time, because you don't know who you can trust, especially if it's someone you don't know from before. If you just met this person, you really, really do not know who they truly are and what they are willing to say and do to get what they want. And sometimes that's just sex. I must say that was a one-off in my case. Some of you might have experienced this before, but more often than not, when I communicated that sex was off the table, the people who were not serious, they would take that information and leave, which is perfectly fine. And however, the people who were interested in exploring further, they would respect that and continue to get to know me and invest the time that it takes to actually get to that level of intimacy that I at least feel comfortable with. I've definitely fallen into the trap though, because sometimes it's just a little bit too fun in it, and the chemistry is great and they're saying all the right things. And since I pray so intently about what I want and I see all the right signs of the person in front of me being that person, I get tempted just like anybody else. And sometimes I'm like, oh, God is blessing me immediately, and here we are. And what ends up happening in those situations when I allow myself to go all the way is that they pretty much disappear after, because their long-term intentions were not the same as mine. And when I fail to communicate those, that's also when I fail to stay true to myself, and that's only my fault. And I am the only one who can take accountability for that. But I also know the pain that I feel, like gut-wrenching pain in the stomach when I have this self-loathing where I'm like, oh no, I fell for it again. I hate that feeling, and I want to be in control. I want to be the one who makes the choice. And I know how easy it is to give sex to a man. It's like the easiest thing in the world. But when I think about it, at the end of the day, I want to put in that hard work for a relationship to work, because that's what it requires, meaning that I need to be resilient in moments, especially the heat of the moment when everything is seemingly possible. Maybe there's some alcohol involved, and therefore I lower my inhibitions. So for me, boundaries have come to mean staying strong when I am incredibly tempted, being disciplined when I have to do the opposite of what I instinctively feel like doing in that moment. Because I know that when I want something to last for a long time, then patience is key. And it is also key to really know each other. It's also key to know what your intentions are back and forth, if those goals or the long-term goals are aligned. And you don't really know that after one night. And you also don't know if someone is willing to put in that work when you've given it up immediately. At least I've found that to be counterproductive, and I have not been successful yet. I am definitely way more successful in long-term dating when I allow myself to give it some time and figure out if this is a safe space where I actually feel respected and that I know that I'm safe with that person that I'm with. And that hasn't really come my way until recently. And that is because I've become increasingly aware of what I tolerate within myself. Like I said, waking up feeling that pit in my stomach and the self-loathing, that's definitely not how I want to feel. I definitely want to have a sense of being in control and knowing that I too have agency, I too can make a choice. And I've definitely learned that my value is not held in whether or not I have sex with someone or whether or not they want to have sex with me, because chances are that a man wants to have sex. So it's not that hard. I know I'm repeating myself in some extent, but yeah. So for me, it's kind of like playing that, like dancing that dance of going out, dancing, making out, but holding that boundary still. No sex on the table until I know that someone actually has an intention of dating me long term, especially when that's what I am trying to accomplish. I do feel like challenging you a little bit though, especially if you're a girl. I know that a lot of us just want something casual. A lot of us say that that's what we want. I just want someone here and there. Um, I don't know if you're anything like me, but I latch on somewhat immediately after intimacy is kind of there. I can manage it all with the making out and the flirting and the dancing, but the moment I have sex with someone, the idea of it being casual just goes off the table. Now I'm checking if they're checking in on me. Now I want them to text. Now I want to see them another time. And I wonder if that's somewhat true for you too. And if it is, are you being honest with yourself about what you really want? And what does casual sex even mean? What is to come from that? Is it because you're really young and you just don't want to commit yet? Or is it that you're afraid of saying what you really want because then they disappear? And it's really scary to be alone. I definitely recognize that feeling of it being scary to be alone. I definitely have felt that many times throughout my life. I really struggle with the void, and I'm real quick to fill it in one way or another. But it is in these experiences that I've come closer to my truth and what I am willing to do to get closer to it. Because have you checked to see the response once sex is off the table? It is also a really quick way to get rid of someone that isn't for you. Because even if someone is choosing you to use, they're still using you, meaning that you're taking away your own agency. You're not actually in control of your own outcome. You're allowing someone else to take up that space. Especially, I've found myself even allowing someone else to define my worth, how much they talk to me, how much time they spend with me, how often we have sex. Stuff like that has actually I have allowed myself to be defined, let my value be defined by stuff like that, which is super crazy to think about. But I think more of us kind of fall into that trap a little bit. And the more honest you are with yourself about what you actually want and need, the sooner you'll accomplish it. We also have to recognize that sex is so much different from men and women. I've had episodes before explaining that for women, we actually release a hormone that latches on. It is a connection. That is the hormone that is releasing. We actually get connected to that person, which is why I suggest that my experience has been that too, that I say that it's casual, but it really isn't. And when it's on the table, it's no longer casual. But men, on the other hand, they feel a sense of accomplishment. That's the hormones that they release, that sense of accomplishment. So for them to have sex it means something completely different. It's a whole nother ball game. Not to say that men doesn't want to commit. Of course they do. Men wants to commit too in one way or another and in different seasons of their lives. But I just believe, based on my experience, that men are more likely to choose the woman who has self-respect and direction, meaning that she doesn't give it up because it defines her value. She's able to stay strong in her desire, knowing that she wants to be chosen and knows in what direction she's headed, what goals she has, what dreams she has. For me, it's to become a wife first and foremost, and then a mom and someone to build my life with. When that is what I am trying to accomplish, at least I have direction. and I know where I'm headed. Meaning that when I'm dating, it's really easy for me to pluck the weeds because not me translating directly from Norwegian, but that's also how you do the process of elimination, right? When someone don't have those long-term goals, then it's easier to let go of that, right? That's when you have to say thank you next, as Ariana Grande would say. However, when you don't define what you want, when you're not clear about what you're trying to accomplish when being intimate with someone, then chances are you're also going to attract that aloof person who doesn't know where they're headed. And I think that why a lot of people struggle in dating, it's because they don't have direction and a goal and a purpose in which they're trying to accomplish. When you're thinking you're going to be casual, then that's what you get. And that's also where a lot of the confusion and turmoil comes. I do believe that a man is more likely to choose that woman who has direction and knows where she's headed, as opposed to the woman who doesn't know what she wants, but is okay with casual sex. Correct me if I'm wrong. I could be so off, but my experience is that the coolest guys that I've ever been with are the ones that was aligned with where we're headed. And we've had so much fun. And although we haven't been a long-term situation because of different compatibility reasons or just not really wanting to go all the way with each other, that's still the most meaningful connections that I developed because we at least had the same intentions for one another. But that's not to say that every person you meet is going to be the right one. But that's the whole process of elimination, right? But these are people that I waited with, people that I knew once I headed into it. And I was confident that I was willing to take that risk with that person. And although it didn't work long term, I have the best memories with these people. So, yeah. It's also way easier to break up then. It's way easier to break up because it's not about your own worth and value and the whole attachment to that person being the outcome. It's the outcome being the purpose and wanting the right person to fit that and not trying to fit the person into the scenario. That sounded complicated, but I think you know what that means to you. I have been so quick to rearrange my whole life around what that person that I was latched onto wanted to accomplish. And even though that wasn't nearly close to what my heart was aching for, but I was so hung up on the person being the outcome and not what I actually want to be the outcome and allowing God to attract that person into my life. When you don't know what you want, chances are you will attract a person who doesn't know what they want. And whether or not you are in alignment, boundaries are not about them. Boundaries are all about you and whether or not you honor them. The worst betrayal isn't someone breaking your heart. It's you breaking your own word or not even defining your words and what you want. The hardest part of boundaries are honoring them when no one's watching. It's the discipline of choosing your long-term well-being over the short-term desire. Because right there and then it can be really tempting, and boy, do I know. But you know what? It's not cold or controlling to withhold some parts of yourself in the process of getting to know someone. It is loyalty to yourself. It is self-respect in motion. And it's when you live like that, when your actions are aligned with your values, that's when you walk differently. That's when you attract differently. And that's when you show up in dating with intention. So let me leave you with this. Boundaries are not hard walls, but they're invitations for you and for others to step deeper into alignment. And your boundaries will look different from mine, probably. But the question that you really have to ask yourself is, what is the cost of you not honoring your own boundaries? Your body, your heart, your peace, they will always be the one to tell you. Be honest with yourself about what you want and be intentional about achieving that. It's okay to fail. It's okay to be tempted. It's okay to cross that line and dance really close to the line, but the only one hurting is you. And it's also up to you to stay on the side of the line that you're comfortable with and that is actually going to help you accomplish what you desire. And that starts with you defining what that actually is. So, as per usual, stay curious and get to know yourself better. If you want to come share your version of how your attachment style manifested itself in your love life, please email me on magsmindset@gmail.com. I can't wait to hear from you.